This is a video going over the build order on a metal map. I start with showing the hotkeys to just give some general hotkeys that you should know. You can use Autohotkey to rebind certain keys to use some of these better, such as Y, which is pretty far. Other ones should be pretty easy to use, such as W and Q, so you shouldn't have to rebind those. It should be noted that in this video I won't go through everything since this is a long video. I will have timestamps in the video just to skip to certain parts that may be more helpful. I show the whole video just to show of what type of build order you can do on a metal map. This isn't optimal, it's not really supposed to be, but it's just showing a reference of where you should be in a map like this. Something that should be noted here is how little the commander's moving. This is to help him just build the whole time rather than walking around. On a metal map, this is pretty important as you do want him to be building almost the whole time at the beginning. Something else to note is how low the energy in metal get without actually getting to zero. This is pretty important because if the energy gets to zero, your metal extractors stop making metal, and if your metal gets to zero, you should have built more. Once this factory gets built, I do show the Control F function. This one's not too important as most of the times you don't have that many factories, but on a metal map you can have quite a few, and Control F just helps you both find them and select them to build whatever you want. I should also say why I built K-bots instead of vehicles. The main reason that is the tier 2 K-bots have better build power, and the tier 2 vehicles just are not as good. They're more expensive metal wise, and they're also a little clunky because they're bigger and can't move as well. Once enough energy has been made, you can tell the commander mainly just guards the factory almost the whole time. You can use G for this. I would recommend using this hotkey. Yet again, if you don't like using G, you can rebind it to, spacebar, D, A, anything. This part right here can be pretty crucial for a build-up, as you want to get at these first level construction K-bots as quick as possible. You still don't want your metal to get to zero, and you definitely don't want your energy to get to zero. So you want to get as many as you can on that factory, but you still need to watch your metal and energy. If your energy ever goes down, just build another solo with your commander. Here's when I start using an Autohotkey. It is by default X. You can change that to anything you want. I believe mine is actually spacebar, and I just kind of like that. It's just a little bit easier. You can also use it if you hold the X key and go over, let's say, a sentinel or a light laser, and you selected a wall. You can build it around that, and that can be pretty helpful against certain units and defend the laser pretty well. You can also use the scroll wheel to go up and down, and that will make the spacing more or less depending on which way you go. You may notice I build another first level lab rather than a second level. This is number one because I'm out of metal, and I'm trying to get more construction K-bots on another factory. I can't fit them all on the first factory. And another reason I do this is I'm just overproducing on tier 1, which is actually fine if you look at the metal cost of a first level construction K-bot per the build power it has. It's actually better than most tier 2 units, if not all of them. And the first level metal extractors are also actually more efficient than the second level ones per metal make over build time, energy, and actual metal cost. The only thing that's not really worth it is the spacing. Obviously, fusions make much more energy per just how big they are, and the second level metal extractors are the same, and even the second level construction units have more build power per just the size they are. The fusion is also about 30% more efficient for the amount of time you spend building it. For the energy output, it's about 40% more efficient on the metal you put in for the energy output. So that should be noted, but yet again, for the metal and the construction units, you can kind of overproduce on tier 1 For the most part, I find it worth it. I should note yet again that someone could have attacked you by now, so this is not optimal, for expecting attacks. This is just showing the economy build up, and that's about it. Another useful hotkey is the comma or period. This allows you to switch pages and can be pretty helpful as you don't actually need to click the small arrow. This saves a decent amount of time and is definitely worth it. You can see it at the bottom right side of your keyboard. Obviously, the way it is now, it's hard to press and might not be worth it. This one I would definitely recommend rebiting. I have it as both A and D, so A goes to the left page and D goes to the right page. You probably only need one of those, just the right page for the most part, but I would still recommend using these. You can see I start with those advanced construction K-bots. In a real game, you'd probably want to attack someone or build a radar or just start making peewees or something. But yet again, this is just a build up. I show Control B. This is one of the hotkeys which I think is almost necessary to play the game, especially a metal map. As you get a bunch of construction units, once they stop building, they can just sit there for a long time. And the only really good way to just see if there are any that aren't doing anything is just Control B. This will go to any that are idle. You can see I start using this more and more as the video goes on. It's just too helpful not to use. Yet again, you can rebind this to any key. So I have it as R, so I just click R. I don't do Control, and that goes to any idle construction unit. At this point, I start running out of resources. I believe the reason this is I go to tier 2 metal extractors too quick. I also build a lot of factories and started a fusion. I think I really should have stayed tier 1 a little longer. I believe I mentioned earlier that the tier 2 metal extractors aren't actually better than the tier 1 in almost any way other than they just make more metal per size. The actual metal output per metal input and metal output per energy and time, the tier 1 are just better on all of those. So it'd be better to just build those for a while until it's almost you're forced to build the other ones just because you have the FARKs and the tier 2 and it's just quicker to build them closer than just make a bunch of tier 1. The fusion could have also been delayed and more solar panels could have been built. I don't know if this would actually be more efficient, but this might have made the beginning energy economy a little bit more stable rather than a giant jump from, I believe it's about 3,000 to 4,000. It might have been 2,000 to 3,000. Either way, it might have made it a little bit more stable. I believe it's still later where I run out of energy. Currently, I'm fine, but I do run out. One thing you can also note is how many FARKs or units I'm helping build those Moho mines. When you do start making them, I would just recommend 3 to 4 FARKs or 3 to 4 construction K-bots. If you do any more than that, they'll start blocking him. And they may do that anyway, but if you only do 3 to 4, they tend to not block him, especially if you use the FARKs. As mentioned earlier, you can tell at this point I'm not really moving the screen too much. I'm mainly just doing Control B, seeing what it is, and seeing if I need to make metal, energy, or guard a factory, or guard a unit. I mean, that's about all I'm doing, just Control B over and over again, and just seeing is it metal, energy, or is it just a factory I need to make, or a factory I need to guard, or just a unit I need to guard. About at this point, you can see I definitely messed up my energy and metal. I should have built more solars here, and I probably should have built more factories. This would have used more of my metal, so I'm not excessing metal, and the solars would have fixed the energy problem. Should also be noted that I accidentally got all the construction units that were building that first fusion onto the other fusion. It'll be more obvious once I go back to it that, see, they swapped to the other fusion, so that definitely affected that. You can tell about at this point, a little earlier too as well, that everything starts getting in the way of each other. So it is important definitely to think ahead and try to build where other things aren't in the way. That's not what I really do. To be honest, I mainly just build everything and try to get everything doing something, so at least I'm not wasting metal. But it's probably better to waste a little bit more metal but have a cleaner build so that later on in the game you can not waste even more metal. One other thing to think about is if you had teammates, you can always share all these resources. And also, if you're playing a real game, you'd be building a lot more attacking units such as Zeus's and warriors and other things. So you'd be using a lot more metal than this. I also wanted to talk about one of these factories that's about to be built that I build warriors out of. But when I select that factory, I quickly go to the mega map and press M, and I move it to the enemy base. You can see I do it, and I do it very quickly. But I click on that factory, I go to the mega map, and I press M, and I click on the enemy's base, and this will just have all those units in the factory just move to the enemy's base. This is very helpful. I also talk about the mega map here. If you're not using it, I would heavily recommend using it. When you move your mouse wheel down, this will show the mega map, and when you go back with the scroll wheel up, this will go back to the normal view, and it'll also go back to where the cursor is. So if you're pointing the cursor about to where you're at, it should go back to that. It should also be noted that if you hold W and you select things while using this mega map or normal view, it will only select units that are attacking. And as shown on the screen before, if you do B, this will only select construction units, so construction airplanes, FARKs, construction K-bots, construction vehicles. And if you use Y, this will select all factories. So if you know there's a large group of factories somewhere, you can hold Y, and this will select only those factories, and you can have them all move to the enemy space. I do start to build air. I originally wasn't planning on that, but since I was wasting so much metal and energy, I decided to just start doing that. The original plan was just go 20 minutes and just see how much metal and energy I could make, but I decided to just start making air and nukes and anti-nukes just to see how much I can really just build in total before 20 minutes. Another thing to also know is when you put a bunch of these construction units on the aircraft factories, you want to make sure that none of them are walking around the factory trying to find a spot to actually guard it. The reason this is if they don't have enough space for all of them, sometimes one will either be pushed in or will just walk on top of the pad, and then no airplanes will be built because it's on top of the pad. You can see here I use H, and this shows up a little board where you can toggle no shake and shoot all. The no shake will just make your screen not shake, and the shoot all will just make your unit shoot metal and energy instead of just units that will attack yours. You can also share resources on that, and that's pretty helpful as well. Two things are kind of changing here. You can see I'm mainly making a lot of factories. This is because I just have so many construction units, I just need to put them on something just so I don't have to worry about them just sitting there idle. The other thing is the Control F and Control B. You can see I'm not using Control B as much, I still am using it, but it's not much because I can just use the mega map to go to where all the construction units are. The Control F I'm still using for sure. I mean, this one's even more important later because I'm just building a bunch of factories. You can see I paused the game. It should be about 20 minutes. And you can look at the resources, and if you play Core Prime or any other metal map, you can see how you did compared to those resources and how many factories you made. I also start showing the whiteboard key. This is because I'm about to start bombing. I do fast forward just to show the bombing quickly because I think this is very important even though it's not a resource thing. This is the main attack you should be using later in the game, as most of the units you just send in, you don't really focus on what they're doing, but the bombers you do. So I show the whiteboard key and I show how to mark, and then I send in the bombers. Main thing is just know how to use the attack key, because you can manually do it if you have vision, but usually you have to force the A button, so the attack. So you just click A and you click where it's supposed to be, and it'll show up here soon. You can see I use the whiteboard key to show where they should be, and I also slow it down a little bit. So I press A and I cue it, and once some of the bombs are released, I just press A and go in front of the factory again, and once bombs are released again, I just click A on where the factory should be, and they bomb. I do want to mention that you can still rebind this whiteboard key. It should be all the way on the right side of your keyboard, right above the right enter and the right shift. So you can rebind this to Windows key. This is what I have mine, and it's pretty helpful. And also it should be noted that when you double click when you're holding this whiteboard key down, you can mark things. I did this earlier. I marked a factory tier 2, and this can be pretty helpful for your teammates, as if they hold the control button and click the whiteboard key, this will actually route them to where you did that. I hope there's some information in this video that you find helpful. I can make a video on the hotkeys if that will help people, and I can also make a video on a non-metal map. Yet again, all the stuff in this video isn't exactly optimal, but it should show at least one way of doing things.